It's a presentation of Fox Sports.
We are Blackboard. We are Arizona.
Friday night in Phoenix, it's the D-backs and the San Francisco Giants. Tonight, the second of a four-game series, and the D-backs right behind the Giants near the NL West lead. And we're just about set for first pitch as this Chase Field homestand continues. It's D-backs baseball on Fox Sports Arizona. Good evening from Chase Field. Welcome to the broadcast. Steve Berthune, Bob Brenly along the way. It's the D-backs and the Giants. And tonight, another matchup of pitching headliners. And once again, both are new acquisitions. For the Giants, it's Jeff Samardzija. And Bob, for the Diamondbacks, Shelby Miller.
Shelby Miller coming off by far his best outing of the season down in Atlanta on that last road trip. And I think the thing that was most impressive for me for Shelby in that ball game, he got himself into some trouble, but managed to limit the damage and pitch himself out of those jams, unlike earlier in the season when once that ball started to roll downhill, it got ugly.
Did you see enough last time out to believe that there's some momentum that'll carry over into tonight?
Well, you'd like to think so. There's an old saying in this game, momentum is your next day's starting pitcher, and in that case, it's Shelby Miller. So hopefully the momentum is right there warming up.
Well, the way the series has unfolded, the two new guys at the top of the rotations, we saw Zach Greinke and Shelby Miller, and for the Giants, Johnny Cueto tonight. Another free agent signee, Jeff Samardzija.
Yeah, this guy is a real horse. In his 7 starts this season, he's pitched into the 8th inning 4 times already. Has altered his arsenal a little bit this year. Doesn't throw as many split fingers. He mainly relies on a sinker and a cutter, and he's been very successful with it.
You've seen a lot of him over the years.
Yeah, I saw him come up as a baby with the Cubs as a relief pitcher. He was wild, had no idea where the ball was going, but with each successive year, he's gotten better and better and better. Has a young arm because he played football in college rather than all the baseball grind.
And we're just about set to go for the second of this 4-game series. Miller and Samardzija on this Friday the 13th. It's Diamondbacks baseball on Fox Sports Arizona. First pitch coming up.
Arizona Diamondbacks baseball on Fox Sports Arizona is brought to you by CenturyLink. Switch to CenturyLink Prism TV for an advanced TV experience. Learn more at cprismtv.com. By Jack in the Box. Taste the all-new Double Jack Burger today, only at Jack in the Box. And by your Valley Honda dealers, where you'll get more standard features for less money.
baseball on Fox Sports Arizona is brought to you by Chaz Roberts Air Conditioning and Plumbing. Choose Chaz. By Lone Butte Casino. Get in on big wins. By Oregano. Step up to the plate for a guaranteed home run at Oregano's, your neighborhood pizza joint. Location statewide. And by Gigablast, 100 times more powerful internet from Cox. Bring on tomorrow. Roof and panels just opened up here at Chase Field. We are just about set to go. Shelby Miller will take on Jeff Samardzija and the Giants. First pitch is next right here on Fox Sports Arizona. Arizona, it's a Friday night in downtown Phoenix. That means D-backs baseball, 100 degrees. It's not winter that's coming, but summer here. Roof and panels open, though, and a very comfortable night at the ballpark. The D-backs and Bruce Bochy's San Francisco Giants, the G-men have won 9 of their last 12 here at Chase Field, Bob. That's got to change.
That has definitely got to change. Hopefully this is the lineup that will do nothing tonight. DENARD Span out in center field for the Giants. Joe Panik at second base. Matt Duffy at third. Buster Posey behind the plate. Brandon Belt down at first with Hunter Pence in right. Brandon Crawford at short. The pitcher Jeff Samardzija hitting 8th. And Angel Pagan back in the lineup out in left field.
Pagan has been out since May 1st with a hamstring. Your Arizona Ford starting pitcher for the D-backs in the teal tonight. It's Shelby Miller, coming off his first win as a Diamondback in Atlanta over the weekend. What did you see, Bob, that would lead you to believe he can continue that progress here tonight?
Well, I didn't see him rubbing his knuckles on the mound, for one thing. That's a step in the right direction. Hopefully corrected the mechanical issues that were causing that problem. But he pitched well. 6 innings, gave up only 4 hits. Granted, it was the Atlanta Braves, but as I mentioned in the open, there were a couple of times where it could have really gone off the cliff for Shelby Miller, and he was able to right the ship and pitch 6 strong innings.
They gave up a first-inning home run to Freddie Freeman, had bases loaded, no outs in the second, gave up only 1 run and was solid from there. The defense for the Diamondbacks brought to you by Nationwide Vision Centers.
Chris Owings once again out in center field. He'll be flanked by Yasmany Tomas in left and Brandon Drury in right. Brandon made some nice plays out in right field last night. It'll be Jake Lamb at third, Nick Ahmed at shortstop, Gene Segura at second base, Paul Goldschmidt at first. Wellington Castillo doing the catching for right-hander Shelby Miller.
We all have our mountains to climb.
Oh, brother.
We are open for business here. DENARD Span set to lead it off. Trip Gibson is the plate umpire tonight. He'll have the balls and strikes as Span steps in, and we are set to go. Second of a 4-game series here in downtown Phoenix. Span had a pair of singles last night. He scored a run. And he's in there at 252 with 1 home run. Chip Hale said last night the D-backs feel like if the pitching gets straightened out like they think it can, they can go on a run. Well, no better time to start than right here. And there's strike 1. Shelby called that first win as a D-back in his previous start. A pretty big confidence boost for him. You can understand that. It was finally nice to pitch a decent game, he said. Felt a bit like his old self. This is in the air to deep center field. Chris Owings in front of the warning track, and he runs it down. Valley Honda dealers, key to the game. What have you and your staff come up with tonight?
Well, it is Friday the 13th. What better day to try to change your luck? Diamondbacks have really struggled here at home this year to the tune of 5-13. Today's the day. Change your luck.
Joe Panik, the second baseman. Once again, Shelby throws a first pitch strike. Panik 246 and now 4 homers. He got number 4 last night off Zach Greinke. Be nice to see Shelby be able to stay in the windup here for at least the first inning or two, get a rhythm, get a pace, get some tempo going, settle in. He's ahead of Panik, a ball and 2 strikes. And he felt like maybe last week in Atlanta, a place where he pitched last year, that was possibly a turning point for him.
He had such great success other than the win-loss record pitching for the Braves last year down at Turner Field. Maybe that was a turning point for him.
Mike Butcher, the pitching coach. Two and two. Big key for Shelby tonight, especially against guys like Panik, who homered here last night. Pitching in this ballpark is keep it in the park. He has given up 6 home runs in 4 starts at Chase Field this year. Matt Duffy will be next.
I don't know, partners, in my imagination, Joe Panik looks bigger and stronger this year than he was last year. He looked kind of slight of build at second base last year.
He's a growing boy.
Yeah.
6'1", 190 is what he's listed at. 25 years old. He'll be 26 at the end of October.
Well, he hit that ball last night like a big boy.
Sure did. This is bounced to Segura at second. 2 up, 2 down for Miller.
Could be that big league meal money too.
It kicks in after a while, doesn't it?
Number 5, Matt Duffy.
Sure, order dessert, no problem.
Yeah, why not?
I got you covered. Duffy 261. He's homered twice. Singled and scored a run last night. He was 1 for 4. And another first pitch strike for Shelby Miller. Duffy this year walking more often than he did last season, and he's striking out less. Just continues to improve as a major league hitter. Drives this one to Drury in right field, and it drops in front for a 2-out single. Duffy takes Miller the other way, and now we'll get a look at Buster Posey.
Aggressively attacking with fastballs. That's pretty much right down the middle of the plate. Duffy a little bit late and carves that one down the right field line. Brandon Drury once again routine play, but handles it nicely. Went right to the spot he had to be. Checking with Dave McKay in that third base dugout where they want him positioned for Buster Posey.
Matt Williams positions the infielders and Dave McKay the outfielders. Posey 277. He's got 4 home runs. A pair of hits last night. just foul, says Gabe Morales down at third. That was headed for trouble. D-backs caught a break there. Buster Posey loves hitting in this ballpark. He has 15 hits in his last 31 at bats at Chase Field, and is a .353 career hitter here.
He's a little bit like Goldie in that respect. I think he's got similar numbers just about everywhere he's ever played.
He's pretty good.
Maybe not quite to the level that he has here at Chase Field, but he's a pretty darn good hitter.
Oh, and 2. Posey, a couple of hits last night, single, double. Didn't look like a guy who's been slumping badly as of late. He was 1 for 24 coming in. But he can get healthy in a hurry at Chase Field. He always has. Just able to hold up, and it's a ball and 2 strikes. Fastball up, and he fouled it back. It stays 1-2. The goal for Shelby Miller in that win Saturday in Atlanta: pick up his target from the catcher and let it fly. They don't want Shelby out there worried about mechanics, because that gets in his head. He did a good job of that last weekend. We'll see if he can do it again tonight. Like Butcher has said, they are trying to keep him aggressive on the mound, because when he's aggressive, he's fine. Get out there and attack with that fastball. Sometimes I guess guys, and I'm sure you had a lot of guys like this out there on the mound, they think too much and they get all locked up.
Yeah, and occasionally, not necessarily the case for Shelby Miller, but if a guy's got 4 pitches, he feels like he has to throw all 4 to every hitter he faces. Got to show all 4 of your pitches to every hitter instead of just pounding them with fastballs till they prove they can do something with that pitch. And if you locate the fastball, you might not need any of your secondary pitches.
Reaches out and taps it to shortstop. Ahmed there for the force on Duffy, and Shelby Miller is out of the first. The shark Jeff Samardzija coming up for the Giants. Chase Field, your Arizona Ford starting pitcher for the Giants is Jeff Samardzija, a 5-year, $90 million free agent contract with the Giants in December. And so far he's won 4 of his 7 starts and has more strikeouts than hits allowed. What's the key against this guy?
Be aggressive. I mean, he's going to be aggressive. He's going to attack that strike zone. I mentioned earlier, a 2-seam sinker, a cut fastball. He hardly ever throws his slider or split finger anymore. He's just basically a fastball pitcher that's going to challenge the zone. So be ready to hit strikes.
He's got that big turn. Do you remember him having as exaggerated a turn as he seems to? It's almost like Cueto out there.
I think he's adopted a little bit of Johnny Cueto's delivery out of the windup. Really closes up that front shoulder and left hip before delivering to home plate.
There it is. Back to the batter. In this case, it's Gene Segura. That's strike 1. Segura, 353 and 5 home runs. Another multi-hit game last night. He singled 3 times. Down 0-2. Segura leading the major leagues in hits. He's had 7 games this year with at least 3 hits. This up in the air, deep right field. It backs Pence up to the track, and he's got it for the first out. Well, the mojo here in this ballpark has got to change. Chip Hale's ball club 5-13 at Chase Field.
Here's the offense that actually has been doing pretty well here at home. Gene Segura leading it off. He'll be at second base. Brandon Drury in right field. Paul Goldschmidt at first. Jake Lamb at third. Wellington Castillo once again doing the catching with YASMANY Tomas in left. Chris Owings in center. Nick Ahmed at shortstop.
Nailed it.
Shelby Miller pitching. It's only taken 2 years.
Brandon Drury.
And that's no guarantee I'll get it right next time.
Well, that's what makes it fun. We're not laughing at you, we're laughing near you.
Ah, yeah.
299 and 6 homers for Brandon, who's in there in right field again. And he was on base 3 times last night, a walk and a pair of singles. David Peralta out again. He has not started a game since Saturday in Atlanta because of that sore right wrist. And it was examined by Dr. Sheridan, who found no structural damage. And Chip Hale said David is still receiving treatment, not ready to be in the starting lineup, but they will not put him on the DL, at least at this point. They feel like he can still help off the bench. And David spoke with reporters before the game tonight, said the MRI was clean. The doctor told him, you're going to be fine. 1-2 on Drury. Base hit. What else is new? He slaps it the other way. What's interesting about Peralta's comments today, David said he doesn't believe the problem is a result of getting hit by those pitches last month in San Francisco. He said he's not really sure what is causing the soreness and the discomfort, but it wasn't, he said, getting hit by those pitches.
I'm sure that may have been part of the cumulative effect, but I think, I'm not putting words in David's mouth, but I think he felt like he could play after he got hit by those pitches, and it's just come on recently where it's become so uncomfortable he can't play.
Goldie now. More walks than hits this year. First pitch swinging aggressive early. Sky high pop up third base side for Duffy. 2 down. Brings up Jake Lamb.
Number 22.
It's a good pitch to attack right there. Fastball up on the inside part of the plate. Just got underneath it. Hit that ball a mile in the air.
Jake 267. He's homered 4 times. Had an RBI single and a base on balls last night. Back in the cleanup spot tonight against Samardzija. Drury at first, 2 down.
Jake caused quite a stir in that first base dugout last night, with his at bat against Santiago Casilla in the 9th last night. Bruce Bochy went out, took his closer out of the game because Jake Lamb had 2 homers against Casilla. Went with Javier Lopez, the left-handed specialist, to end the game, but Casilla was not real happy getting pulled from that ball game.
Visibly upset. But You can't really complain when it worked out. I mean, Lopez came in, got Lamb to ground out, and that was the end of the ball game.
Made all the sense in the world strategically because Chip Hale didn't have a right-handed option to pinch hit for Jake Lamb if he wanted to.
Look, he went back to the mound and said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And Bochy said, "Get in the dugout." And he is not happy. So we'll see if there's a carryover effect there the rest of this series. 1-1 on Lamb. Buster Posey wants it up. He chased a ball and 2 strikes. Jeff Samardzija had a bad year with the White Sox last year. I mean, he really struggled. He was 11-13, the ERA under 5, just barely. No pitcher in baseball allowed more hits, total bases, or earned runs than Samardzija did in Chicago last season. Gave up 29 home runs, more than any other American League pitcher. But got $90 million from the Giants, and so far it has paid off. He's looked very good.
And when he was with the Cubs, I mentioned I saw him as a rookie coming up back in 2008. They weren't quite sure what to do with Jeff Samardzija. Some people in the organization envisioned him as a potential closer. Pitched in relief for Lou Piniella there in Chicago for a couple of years, but in 2012 he moved into the rotation full time and hasn't gone back to the bullpen since.
2-2. That's a rocket fair ball down the right field line. Drury is headed into third. Matt Williams going to stop him there, and it's a double for Jake Lamb. His 11th double. Matt Williams started a half a windmill there and changed his mind, and Drury stops at third.
And of course the Giants overthrow the cutoff man. The ball ended up just trickling across the infield there. You have no way of knowing that over there at third base. Boy, nice swing by Jake Lamb. Just tomahawked that ball down into the right field corner. Brandon Drury off like a shot with 2 outs in the inning, thinking about scoring on that ball down in the corner. And you see Hunter Pence's throw goes to nobody.
So a chance for Wellington Castillo. Drury at third, Lamb at second, and 2 outs. Ball 1 to Beef Wellington, who's in there at .312 on the year. He's got 7 homers. Castillo last night 1 for 4 with a single.
A member of our crack staff, when we were on that last road trip, sent me a picture from the Diamondbacks team shop with a number 7 jersey, and on the back it said Beef.
I think they sell those. They have the T-shirts. Yeah, it's a good-looking shirt. I need to get a few of those. We'll see if Beef is on the menu right here. Big spot, chance to put up a crooked number in the first against Samardzija. That's in there for a strike. 2-1. They got a lot of good stuff in that team shop. All the new stuff is in. The teal, the new look, the evolution. You name it, it's in there. T-shirts, uniforms, hats, jackets. The team shop here at Chase Field. Mention Bob's name. He'll maybe give you a break on something.
Charge a double.
2-1. Sky high pop up. Crawford's under it. Shortstop. Samardzija strands 2. We are through the first. Roof and panels open. No score at Chase Field. Night at Chase Field is tomorrow. So arrive early, get your D-backs Star Wars soft style t-shirt. It's courtesy of Cox Communications. For tickets, dbacks.com. It's coming up tomorrow, Star Wars night here at the ballpark. And this is a hot item modeled by the beautiful Dennis Lamb here in our booth. Don't, you'll poke somebody's eye out with that thing. But this is the Star Wars soft style t-shirt that you'll get at the game on Star Wars night tomorrow night. Another episode of the Dennis Lamb Show. Great job, Dennis. Brandon Bell leads off the Giants second against Shelby Miller. The shift is on, and there's strike one. Shelby has thrown a first pitch strike to every Giant hitter so far. Bell 311, 4 homers. He's knocked in 22 runs. 1 for 4 with an RBI single last night. Now, when they say the soft style, this is the new thing that all the kids are wearing. It's very, very nice. Soft, very comfortable. This is a hot item. Jake Lamb, the third baseman, standing in the second base spot. Segura back on the outfield grass in very shallow rain. Belt ahead on the count, 2-1. And he hits right into the shift. Lamb almost steps in front of Segura that time. And that's the first out. That's another one of those tweeners, Bob. When you get a little tweener, it seems, with these shifts, sometimes weird things can happen.
I was just thinking the same thing. That's probably the next development with these exaggerated pull shifts. We saw Paul Goldschmidt dive for a ball at first base the other day with the shift on. Had he let it go, it would have been right to Gene Segura, but as it was, he deflected it away from the second baseman. I think the more guys play it and the more situations come up, the more experience they have with it, you'll start to see that shift get even better.
Hunter Pence. Boy, another first pitch strike from Shelby. Pence 290. His 5 home runs and 27 RBIs leads the Giants. Walked twice last night, also drove in a run. Shelby ahead 0-2. Hunter Pence, since the Diamondbacks were in San Francisco in the middle of April, has been among the Giants' most productive bats. Last 19 games, he's hit better than .340 and knocked in 16 runs. Up and in.
Well, he swung on one of those last night.
You're right,
might as well try it again.
Especially on 0-2. It's funny because he is walking twice as often this year as he did last year. He's really cut down on the strikeouts, Hunter Pence. Set up, down and away, and he left it up, but he lines it right in front of Owings for a 1-out single. Second hit for the Giants. You saw where Castillo set that target, and that one sailed on Shelby.
Now, there's a reason he swings at high pitches, because he can get on top of them as good as anybody with that choked up approach with the bat. Tomahawks one out into Chris Owings at territory in center field.
Brandon Crawford.
It looks like the theory where you have a high ball hitter and you try to go a little bit higher than high, and that time it wasn't quite high enough.
That one was up there. Crawford chased 0-1. 250 and 4 home runs. He was 0 for 4 last night. And 2. With Shelby so far, 25 pitches, 19 strikes.
And if you were with us earlier this year when Shelby was struggling, you may recall his head would end up below his left knee when he'd release the ball. His right foot would be pointed way up above his shoulder. Really exaggerated the finish on his delivery. This looks much smoother, much more natural.
Yeah, Shelby said oftentimes when he's lost his command this year, it's because he's been trying to place the ball, trying to throw the perfect strike instead of just going after guys. And too often he's been letting up a little bit, kind of babying those pitches. Trying to be a little too fine, a little too perfect. Just let it go.
Hey fans, when the D-backs win, you win at Papa John's. The day after every Diamondbacks win, you get 50% off your regular menu price online order at Papa John's. Enter promo code DBACKS50 at papajohns.com.
To the mound. They get one. They get two.
And it's time for Game Over Casinos Game Night.
With us as we start the home half of the second inning. Let's check out the San Francisco defense. It's brought to you by Nationwide Vision Centers.
Hunter Pence in his usual position in right field. Center fielder DENARD Span. Left field Angel Pagan. On the infield Matt Duffy at third. Brandon Crawford at short. Joe Panik at second. Brandon Belt over at first with Buster Posey doing the catching for right-hander Jeff Samardzija.
And Blanco on the bench, Span in center, and Pagan for the first time since May 1st is out there in left. He's had a bad hamstring. Tomas leads off the Diamondbacks second against Jeff Samardzija. This is the tank versus the shark here.
Watch the first pitch. Got to get it in quick. Yasmani Tomas is second in the majors swinging at the first pitch 48.8% of the time, but he's got a .389 average doing it. How about
naturally
that?
Takes a strike.
Of course.
There was no way he was swinging at that one. But we appreciate the effort.
I mentioned Tomas second in the majors. Kyle Seager number one. Swinging at that first pitch.
Now it's 0-2. Yasmani last night 0 for 4. That snapped a 6-game hitting streak. He's at .307 for the year and 5 homers. Samardzija really does give you that big exaggerated turn. He is an enormous dude out there, 6'5", 225. He looks like a former football player. mentioned, began his big league career as a reliever, so the mileage on that arm is minimal for a guy who's 31.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact that he was going to summer football practice rather than the wood bat leagues and the Cape Cod League and the traveling club baseball teams.
It's a soft roller to shortstop for Crawford. Yeah, Dave Urgetti, their pitching coach, said, look, it's not like he's some guy who's been banging it out since Little League. He's got a fresh arm. He's got a good attitude. He's got an open book personality. And the Giants got themselves a guy who's been healthy along the way. And at the time of his new contract, had thrown fewer than 1,000 major league innings. So he might be 31, but his arm is still a baby.
I mentioned he moved into the starting rotation full time in 2012. The season before that, he pitched in 75 games out of the bullpen, won 8 games, and had an ERA of 2.97.
Well, what happened with the White Sox last year? That
Yeah.
seems to be a big anomaly. Strike one to CO. Owings 267. He's knocked in 11 runs. Had an RBI triple last night. Really drove the ball hard to that gap in right center. Just like he'd often do before he injured the shoulder. That's a really good sign. When bounces over the glove of Duffy at third. And CO, what about a hustle double? Took a big turn around the bag, but he'll settle for the 1-out single. That's the 3rd hit for the Diamondbacks against Jeff Samardzija. Got the right bounce that time.
Yeah, the Giants get penalized for playing in to protect against a possible bunt for a base hit. Pounds that ball into the dirt right out in front of home plate and over the head of Matt Duffy, who was playing a step or two in front of the bag down there at third.
Nick Ahmed, the shortstop. 0 for 3 in the series opener here. Nick at 176. He's homered 3 times. And Chip Hale last night may have hit for Ahmed in the 6th when they had a threat going. He did hit for him in the 9th and was asked about that after the ball game, and Chip reinforced the idea for everybody that Nick Ahmed is the shortstop and that's the way it's going to be. It was a situational thing, but Chip really thought he had some good at bats in Colorado. He's hit the ball well lately, and Nick Ahmed is the guy out there at shortstop. 6 hits in 9 games on the last road trip, drove in 5 runs. You ever think about that as a skipper? You make some move and you go, I know I'm going to get asked about this after the game, and you got to sort of go through that routine.
Yeah, but you certainly can't let it affect your decisions. You know you're going to have to answer for every move you make over the course of a ball game, but there's a reason you do the things you do. And I've always said it, the manager knows better than we do what his players are capable of and how it all best fits together. So, but you definitely have to have an answer ready post-game.
And they have to ask, too. It's only fair. 1-1 pitch. Popped it up near the Giant dugout, but it's drifting into the seats. Oh, somebody lost a beverage, but he hung on. Homeboy in the hat, he's not feeling as excited as the other guy.
Quite, yeah.
Look.
He's lost about 3/4 of his beverage right there.
Oh, the humanity. So he's like, okay, do I get another beer? Oh, all right.
Okay,
that'll be fine.
Enough.
That'll be fine. 1-2 now. Base hit for Nick. Owings will take the turn and head for third. He's in there. They're on the corners with a 1-out.
Hitting coaches talk about a guy in a slump working his way back around. Try to hit the ball to the opposite field. When you start driving the ball out to right and right center, that opens up the entire field. Good base running by Chris Owings, able to make it to third after stutter stepping around second base, in on his belly at third base.
Boy, CO, the center fielder, you really learn to appreciate just how fast he is. He's at third, Ahmed at first, 1 out. Here's Shelby Miller, who squares to bunt.
This is the same situation we had in Colorado with Ruby De La Rosa at the plate. Nick was at first, Chris Owings was at third, a safety squeeze to the right side, and Chris Owings was able to sneak home with a run.
It was the first time they'd actually executed that play in years, but it worked to perfection that time. And see if CO gets a chance to use that speed. Duffy even with a bag at third. Belt holding Ahmed on the bag at first. Here comes Belt. A ball and a strike. Now, would that be something that the Giants took note of? The Ruby bunt in that Rocky series?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we talked about the advanced scouts and what their job is. They're always a week or two ahead of the team, and I'm sure the Giants had an advanced scout in Colorado watching those games and duly noted the fact that the Diamondbacks pulled off a perfect safety squeeze.
One pitch. Shelby not bunting there. It's 1-2. If they had a play on, they just took it off there. Dropped it in there for the strikeout. First strikeout for Samardzija.
Hey fans, anytime the D-backs score 5 runs or more, Taco Bell is giving away 3 free tacos with the purchase of a large drink between 4 and 6 the following day at participating locations.
Well, the Diamondbacks in the first against Samardzija had second and third 2 out, could not get a run home. Here it's first and third 2 out. Segura now flying out his first time up. Getting some chances early against the Shark. All 1 to Segura, who begins tonight with a 10-game hitting streak. He's hitting .395 during that streak. Two and 0. Well, there's no score so far, but to this point, Samardzija has had to work a whole lot harder than Shelby Miller has. Three and 0 to Gene Segura. Brandon Drury's on deck. He would be next. He had a base hit his first time up. In there for a strike. Samardzija looking for that ground ball here. Trying to get out of this mess. He's been a very effective ground ball pitcher so far this season. 3-1.
Giants catcher Buster Posey in this series have been very, very deliberate giving signs to his pitcher. Caught him last night just kind of staring at the dirt out in front of home plate, looking over to the bench from time to time, kind of pondering what he wants to call next.
Duffy at third, spins and throws. Segura can't quite get there in time. A nice play by Matt Duffy at third base. Belt has it, and once again Samardzija wiggles off the hook here at Chase Field. We head to the third. No score. The Giants and the Diamondbacks.
Look at what's going on.
Time to take a look back at a legacy moments brought to you by Geico. 1958 at the Cubs. Stan Musial recorded his 3,000th hit against Mo Drabowski in that ballgame as a pinch hitter, as a matter of fact. And George Brett, his teammates called him Lou, got his 300th career home run, only the 6th player in baseball history. And how about this list? Hank Aaron, Stan Musial, Carl Yastrzemski, Willie Mays, and Al Kaline, George Brett.
His teammates called him what?
Lou. Don't ask me why.
Well, I was about to. Samardzija, center field for Owings. It's a nice running grab coming in for the first out. One pitch, one out in the third for Shelby. Lou, okay.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat. You get 3,000 hits and 300 homers. Call me whatever you want.
Exactly. Well, back for the Giants. It's Angel Pagan. He has not played since May the 1st. He missed their last 11 games, a grade 1 strain of his left hamstring. And he's been off to a very good start, 315 and 2 homers. Gregor Blanco has started 9 of their last 10 games while Pagan has been out.
And according to his skipper, still not at 100%, but good enough to go back on the field and play. I'm sure he will very closely monitor when he really turns it on down that first baseline and when he just gives it a 75% effort.
It's first time all night Shelby Miller did not throw a first pitch strike, and he's behind on Pagan 2-0. Pagan said he was trying to go for a double during a game in New York, tried to stop and put on the brakes, felt a little tweak in there. They put him through a workout yesterday here just to make sure, and he could do just about everything they needed to see. So that worked out. He's back in there tonight. And Shelby suddenly been throwing nothing but strikes all night, but he's behind on Pagan 3-0. When we've seen Shelby's velocity dip down to the low 90s, from 94, 95 to 91-ish, that's when he runs into trouble. When it seems like he's trying to place the ball instead of just throwing. Like that. His first walk. That's when things have gone off the rails.
Center fielder.
This is a guy that threw consistent 96, 97 last year in Atlanta. The velocity has been well below that this year in Arizona. And that's a telltale sign. Here's Span, who flied out to center his first time. Squares the bunt, takes a strike. Span walking more often now as the Giants leadoff man than ever before in his career. The on-base percentage is up over 350. And he has more walks than strikeouts this year. That is some stance he's got there, Bob.
Watch his head. It drops a good 8 to 10 inches, maybe a foot. Hitting coaches will tell hitters forever, keep your head still, keep your head still. And DENARD Span drops down into that slot not only with his hands but with his entire upper body.
It would be one thing if he started that way, right? But he waits until the pitcher is throwing the ball to get into that crouch.
Very fine timing. You have to make sure you do it quickly enough so that your head is down at that lower level when the ball is released. If you're in motion as the ball is being released, you have very little chance of hitting it.
Double play ball. Segura. Ahmed. Goldie. They roll it. Second consecutive inning ends for Shelby Miller on a Diamondback double play. Here's the 4-6-3. Segura starts it. Ahmed turns it. No score. Chase. Here at Chase Field in downtown Phoenix, the great Bobby Freeman on the old 88s. Hey, D-backs fans, if you can't watch the games on TV, you can now stream games live on your mobile device with the all-new Fox Sports Go app. Just download the app and take Fox Sports Arizona and Diamondbacks baseball with you wherever you go. Brandon Drury leads off the D-backs third against Jeff Samardzija. Drury singled his first time up. It's 0-1. Samardzija jumps ahead 0-2. He had a fairly unspectacular no decision in his Giants debut at Milwaukee, but he's gone on a nice run here lately. His next 5 starts after that opener, he went 4-1. The ERA just a tick above 3. He pitched 8 full innings twice over that span, including 2 starts ago at Cincinnati when he allowed just 3 hits in 8 innings, struck out 9. He lost his previous start. That was at home against the Rockies, but again had 9 strikeouts. Went 7 2/3. Giants were blank 2-0. He got stuck with a loss. That big turn that Samardzija does, there are a lot of people that in Chicago thought that might be the reason why he struggled last year, because it was, they said, sort of putting his arm behind the rest of his body, and it caused him to drag a little bit, and the command got away from him and the whole thing. But it is really a big turn.
It's quite a change from his previous delivery. You know, for a big guy, his other delivery was very clean, very quick. But I think sometimes he got a little too far out in front of his arm.
That was in the hole for Duffy.
And that big exaggerated upper body turn now almost guarantees that his arm is going to be in a good throwing position. He used to just kind of lift his leg right there and step straight toward home plate. But that big spin allows him to get everything where it needs to be, and maybe learn that from Johnny Cueto. I don't know. As you know, partner, I got a little bit of a sore back today. A friend of mine asked me about Cueto's delivery, and I tried to demonstrate it, and I can't hardly move
you
now.
Torqued it, huh? Well, here's Goldie. At least he didn't ask you to demonstrate the dreadlocks. That wouldn't have worked out either.
Not well at all.
Yeah, that's Samardzija. That front knee, when he turns, points almost right at his center fielder, DENARD Span. Whips all the way around there, and I could see how that would be tough on your back. I mean, you're out there in your driveway trying to do your Cueto delivery, and oh, my back. 1-1 to Goldie. Boy, he was solid last night, Johnny Cueto.
There's no better feeling in the world for a starting pitcher than the day after you start and win.
I bet.
They were eating sunflower seeds, run up to the clubhouse every half inning, check other games on the television, maybe have a snack.
2-2. I don't know if he checked out the White Sox game. Of course, Samardzija and Chris Sale were teammates last year. Chris Sale beat the Yankees 7-1. Yankees coming in here Monday. He went all the way, gave up 1 run, 6 hits. He's now 8-0. Last pitcher to win his first 8 starts in a season, Brandon Webb in 08, won his first 9. Chris Sale has been really, really good this year.
Yes, he has. I mean, Randy Johnson-like with his delivery and his build, that low 3/4 arm slot. Hitters just aren't real comfortable facing Chris Sale.
Goldie hasn't looked comfortable. Strikes out on the 94-mile-an-hour fastball, and that is the second strikeout for Jeff Samardzija. 2 down, and Jake Lamb comes up.
Hey fans, the Arizona Diamondbacks and Geico are proud to offer military and first responder ticket discounts all season long, including half off on Sundays. For more information and to get tickets, visit dbacks.com/military. Love to have you out here.
Jake Lamb slashed a double down the right field line in his first at bat against Samardzija. And that is actually something we've seen a lot of from Jake as of late. Drive the ball to left center field with that solid opposite field approach anytime teams pitch him away. We've seen that plenty, but he's actually this year hitting to his pole field a lot more than he did last season. Not going up the middle quite as much. His RBI single last night was belted into right field. His double tonight was pulled down the line. And we saw that last game at Colorado when they had the overshift on him, and twice he hit hard shots right into the shift, and he had base hits taken away. So he really has been pulling the ball a lot lately. There's another one right to belt, and Samardzija works a 1-2-3 third. We head to the 4th. No score. The D-backs and the Giants. John's high-speed delivery. Bob Shelby Miller ground ball to win the first, and then double plays to win the second and the third.
That's when things are going good. Shelby Miller can be an overpowering pitcher up in the zone, but when he's keeping it down with a little movement, he gets these ground balls, gets his defense involved. That's a more democratic way to go about getting outs.
He has thrown so far 37 pitches, 27 of them for strikes. He's been in ahead of the count all night. He's walked only one so far, given up just 2 hits, both singles. Duffy and Pence, and now Panik will lead off the fourth. Panik rounded out his first time up. And another first pitch strike from Shelby Miller.
This will be a big inning to get through for Shelby Miller, only because he has really struggled in the 4th inning of his starts this season. He's given up 5 extra base hits, including 3 homers in the 4th. Opposing batters hitting .481 against him. His ERA in the 4th inning alone is 19.29.
He seems to have really slowed down out there. It's almost a methodical delivery. I mean, they want him to just fire away and let it go, let it fly, as they say. But when he does start his motion, it's very deliberate. .40 pitches, 29 strikes. Got it down, but Panik knocks it into center. A leadoff single. 3rd hit for the Giants against Miller. Well, that guy always hits well in this ballpark.
Really went down to get that one. That pitch is below knee level, but that's usually a hot spot for most left-handed hitters. Joe Panik, no exception, sends it right back up the middle.
Now, why is that? Left-hand hitters like the ball down more than right-hand hitters?
You know, some of it is anecdotal because some of the greatest left-handed hitters in the game were deadly low ball hitters. But I think as a general rule, most lefties like the ball down and in. More righties are better high ball hitters. And I don't really have a good explanation for it other than that's what I've seen.
Well, Matt Duffy singled his first time up.
I mean, it's odd when you find a left-handed hitter who you describe as a good high ball hitter.
Yeah, you can't think of it.
Ernie Witt with the Toronto Blue Jays was a tremendous high ball hitter.
He was a very big guy, though.
Well, yeah, and you know, a lot of times he was on his back knee when he was swinging, so everything was up high to him. But yeah, there are very few left-handed hitters that you would say are really good high ball hitters.
Double play ball again. Ahmed Segura. That's 3 double plays behind Shelby Miller through 3 2/3.
At some point, those become a little demoralizing for the offense. Giants have consistently had runners on base all night tonight and then quickly erased on those double play balls.
That is such a big weapon, especially with these kinds of gloves behind you. This Diamondback infield, in terms of defensive runs saved, is the best in baseball. Buster Posey grounded out to end the first. His career high is 3 double plays in 1 start. Shelby Miller, he's already there. And another first pitch strike. Oh, and 2. He missed a spot there. You could see Castillo set up down and away, and Shelby left that one up, but Posey missed it. Watch how much Castillo has to move the glove here.
You know, from the outside corner at the knees to belt high inside part of the plate.
Hits it in the air, right center field. Brandon Drury it in front of Owings. 3 double plays behind Shelby Miller. Still no score. The Diamondbacks and the Giants.
We ask that you turn your attention to ETV with the D-backs sit back.
Cardinals. It's the bottom of the 4th inning. No score right now. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow the D-backs continue with the 3rd game of the series against the Giants at 5 p.m. Coverage in Spanish on Fox Sports Arizona Plus, presented by your Valley Honda dealers, and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. To find the channel listings and the complete 25-game schedule, visit foxsportsarizona.com. Oscar Soria and Rodrigo Lopez on that broadcast. But on this one, it's Steve and Bob. Gentlemen.
Our English is not as good as their Spanish.
No, not at all.
Not even close. Those guys are awesome. Thank you, JR. Wellington Castillo leads off the Diamondback 4th against Jeff Samardzija, who has retired the last 5 D-backs he has faced. And Rodrigo is another number 13 on this Friday the 13th. 1-1 to beef Wellington. Samardzija has stranded 2 base runners in both the 1st and the 2nd, but he went through the heart of the order in the 3rd in order. Got Drury, Goldie, and Lamb. Two ground ball outs in that 3rd inning. Samardzija says he's a ground ball pitcher. He said in a typical outing he's going to bang it down in the zone, throw sinkers and sliders, and let his defenders work for him. And so far he has been true to his word. A ground ball rate right now the highest of his career, just over 50%. He can still strike guys out. That's his 3rd.
Hey fans, a D-backs home run tonight means a free jumbo jack tomorrow at participating Jack in the Box locations with the purchase of a large drink.
El Tanque, Yasmany Tomas.
I think that's a sign of how Jeff Samardzija has matured as a big league pitcher. Like a lot of guys, when he first got to the major leagues, he wanted to strike out everybody on 3 pitches.
Because he could.
Because he could, yeah. But you know, much more economical now. Throw that ground ball, let your defense work behind you.
Yeah, you get up about a 50% ground ball rate. That's going to get you just about top 20, top 25 of the big leagues. Because when he got it up in the air, as he learned in Chicago last year, that was trouble. Led the American League in home runs allowed with the White Sox. There's another ground ball. Keeping Duffy busy down there at 3rd. 7 straight set down by Samardzija.
The Giants wondered what they were going to do when Pablo Pablo Sandoval left to go back east to Boston, and Matt Duffy has filled in nicely down there at third base. He's had some occasional struggles with the bat, but a solid defensive player, and he's going to hit.
And by contrast, the Panda has got a bad shoulder. Chris Owings singled his first time up, bounced one over the head of Duffy at third. And he takes ball one. So CO is now hit safely in 6 straight games. Batting over 300 during that span. 6 straight games and 7 of his last 8. And he looks more and more comfortable out there in center field all the time. Tony La Russa was saying that CO as a center fielder to this point, he thinks he's already above average, and with experience can get better and better.
Well, truth be told, early in the season, it was his speed alone that was making him a good center fielder. He took some shaky lines after balls, but because he was so fast, he was able to catch up to him and make the plays. Now he's taking better lines to the ball, getting more comfortable out there.
All ground behind the Giant dugout. Yeah, he can get into those gaps. And you're right, that speed really does bail him out sometimes. And you need that extra gear. He's got it. Some of these big outfields in this division made some nice running grabs at Coors Field this week.
Boy, that's learning under fire.
You bet, huh?
I mean, we talked about it last night. Charlie Blackmon, who plays half of his games every year at Coors Field, struggled to make some defensive plays out there. Of course, they were hard hit balls, but CO looked like the guy who played 81 games a year in that ballpark.
Yeah, Blackmon, for all he does, and you look at the defensive metrics, he's not among the elite by any stretch at his position. Still does a good job. 2-2 on Owings. He's worked at full 3-2. Nick Ahmed on deck. Samardzija has not walked a batter so far tonight. He's got 3 strikeouts. Crawford at shortstop, the backhand, plants and throws, and Owings beats it out. There's that speed. He's 2 for 2. Hit deep in the hole at short. Owings beats it out.
Might as well just stick it in your pocket. You have to go that many steps to your right to make a play. Backhand and throw from deep in that hole with Chris Owings running down the line. You have very little chance to get him, although Crawford made it a close play.
You know, how many times in the last few games this week alone have we seen Chris use that speed to beat out infield hits? It's got him at least a handful of hits just this week, it seems.
It should be a big part of his game. You know, it's just a matter of not hitting the ball directly at the defenders. Make that third baseman move several steps to his left. Make the shortstop move to his right. Send that second baseman up the middle of the field. That's when you can really showcase that speed down the first baseline.
Now 5 hits for the Diamondbacks, 2 by Owings. He's at first, 2 outs for Ahmed, who singled his first time up. And he's also 5 for 5 in the stolen base department. Terry Lane, the crew chief, umpiring down there at first. Last times with CO at first. Ahmed knocked one into right field, and Owings was able to get to third. This is up the middle to Crawford's there. Behind the bag, low throw, and the scoop by Belt. They get Ahmed. And that ends the inning. We are still scoreless through 4 at Chase Field.
This moment brought to you by Coors Banquet. Gerardo Parra on this date in 2009 making his major league debut. Homers in his first at bat against a familiar face, and another familiar face right there at third base. Chip Hale was the third base coach for the Diamondbacks at the time, and the starting pitcher on May 13, 2009 was a guy that looks a little different now.
Johnny Cueto.
Johnny Cueto.
There he is. We all looked a lot better then, frankly.
His hair's probably been growing since 2009.
Brandon Belt will lead off the Giant fifth against Shelby Miller, who's got 3 double plays turned behind him. He is yet to strike out a batter. He's got 1 walk and has given up just 3 hits, all singles. And the shift is on for Belt. I think Ahmed will stay put at shortstop. Everybody else moves over to the right-hand side. And that's inside for a ball. Last year, Belt started hitting away from the defensive shifts a lot more often. But they do still work against him because when he hits the ball on the ground, it's almost always to the right side. In fact, he grounded out into that shift to the second baseman Segura his first time up. He's going to bunt away from it, but pops it up. A ball and 2 strikes.
Well, after the count went to 1 strike on Brandon Belt, Nick Ahmed moved way back at a defensive position at shortstop. He was drawn in fairly close to the infield grass up until 1 strike, but then he backed way up, and Belt thought it was worth a shot to try to bunt that ball to the third base side.
Whoa, Trip Gibson says ball 2. 50 pitches now for Shelby, 37 strikes. Where'd this miss? Belt has become a lot more selective this year. He's walked more than he struck out. In fact, he's on pace to set a career high in walks by the middle of the year. And going into tonight has reached base safely in 20 straight games. Much more patient approach up there. Two and 2. That's something he picked up from Joey Votto. Belt says that for him, Votto seems to be one of the most, if not the most, complete left-hand hitters in the big leagues. And he says he's kind of modeled his game after what Joey Votto does. Good on defense. He can go the other way. It was somebody he looked up to as a young player.
I'll tell you one thing about Brandon Belt. He really crowds that inside corner of the plate.
In fact, you saw Wellington Castillo. Watch him tap Trip Gibson on the leg. Hey, move over. Trying to come in if he's going to crowd that plate. Going to do it again here on 3-2. Holds it foul down the line. And there's, oh boy, oh, big game. That's Fred Big Game Bauer down there, and Big Game, not so much. That was hard hit.
Yeah, it was hard hit, and scouting report says Big Game has trouble going to his right.
That's why we have these advanced scouts.
Yeah.
Fred Big Game Bauer. Oh, went down to a
knee buckle.
Yeah. Dick Rerun Robertson working the line in left field tonight. And Shelby wins the battle, gets his first strikeout.
Shelby's on the board. First strikeout of the game comes on a 93-mile-an-hour heater up there at the top of the zone.
Did you have to move umpires around like we saw Castillo do earlier in that bat? Just a little tap on the leg or something?
Some of them. Some of the guys that I mentioned the other day would get right on your back. You could feel their hand on the back of your shoulders. And, you know, guys that work that closely, yeah, you have to kind of give them a shoulder wiggle on one side or the other. I'm going this way. If you want to go with me, you better be ready.
It's almost like a pairs figure skating. 0-1 on Pence, who singled his first time up. Shelby kind of fell off the mound that time. First time we've seen him do that.
I have to say, though, I've never seen a guy reach back and tap the umpire on the leg. Usually it's some other kind of a mechanism to let them know what direction you're going to go to set up and receive the pitch.
Oh, he threw right to the glove that time. We've seen Shelby try to hit that spot before and miss up. This one was right there. That's a good sign. 1-2 now. Yikes.
Zoom ball.
Yep.
Usually just tries to overthrow this one. Let's go a little bit too soon. Talk about changing the eye level.
Yeah. 2-2. That one again, he wanted to go down in a way that leaked back toward Pence. 60 pitches, 44 strikes. He's been very efficient here. Those double play balls have certainly helped. Watch the ball leak back toward the hitter. Full count, 3-2. Had to work harder in this fifth inning than he has all night, really. Crawford, who hit into a double play his first time up, is on deck. Same spot. Got it up, but Pence swung through it. He got Belt. He gets Pence to open up the fifth. 2 down.
Pence has never met a high pitch he didn't want to hack at. Number 4 was just a little too far out of the strike zone for him, but that one right there at the top of the zone, right by him.
This is as good as you've seen Shelby this year?
I think so, from start to finish. Yeah, we've seen flashes of what we expected to see from Shelby Miller from time to time, and at other times we've seen him struggle mightily. But yeah, top to bottom, he's been really good tonight.
Soft breaking ball right to first base coach Bill Hayes, who's got it. Crawford 0 for 1 tonight and 0 for 5 in the series. 248 on the year. Shelby sort of hinted that this may be closer to coming for us when we saw him Saturday at Turner Field. Went 6 innings for the first time since his first start of the year with the Diamondbacks, and against the Braves gave up just 2 runs, 4 hits, walked only 2, and like tonight he was around the strike zone a lot in that game. 53 of his 83 pitches went for strikes. He's ahead of Crawford 1-2. He's a strike away from getting the side in order. It seems like when he's been in some of these 2-strike counts, he is trying to let it fly and let it go a little bit. Now he's zoomed a few up there and missed, but you can see the effort to just let it go sometimes, which is just what they've been looking for, especially ahead in the count. That's in the seats. Center field. Chris Owings backing up at the track, at the wall. He'll play it off the wall. And it rolls away. Drury's over there backing up, and Crawford has a 2-out double, his 8th of the year. Just the 4th hit for the Giants.
Jumping out over the plate at 86. Looked like it was possibly that changeup that he throws very hard like Zach Greinke, and Brandon Crawford drove it to straightaway center. Chris Owings looked like he had a beat on it, but the last instant realizes it's going to hit high off the wall. Fortunately, Brandon Drury hustles over from right field and plays that carom perfectly to hold Crawford to a double.
Is Samardzija any kind of a hitter from your experience?
He likes to think he is. I mean, he's got some pop in the bat. He's driven in 5 runs this year. He's not an embarrassment as a hitter, but he's a pitcher.
Crawford at second, 2 outs. There it is. Respectable numbers for a National League pitcher for the most part. 70 pitches, 50 strikes. Missed with that one. 2 balls and a strike. Dave Stewart, one of the best pitchers of his era, 4 straight 20-win seasons. He knows what he's looking at. And Stu says that when Shelby gets in trouble, he's pressing, trying to make things happen. You can see it. Got it by Samardzija that time, 2-2. And in every one of his starts, he has shown flashes of the pitcher the Diamondbacks traded for. Never more so than tonight. A strike away from stranding Crawford at second and getting through the 5th. Out of play. Two pitch. Shelby says when he has struggled this year, he's been thinking out there, thinking about what he's doing wrong, and he says obviously that can mess with you. Well, ideally he's just playing catch with a catcher, not thinking about anything too much outside of that.
Ideally, you do all your thinking in your side session in the bullpen. Try to iron out any mechanical issues, or if you want to alter your grip on one pitch or another pitch, work on location. You do all that on your side session. And then when you go out there on the day you pitch, just react to what the catcher gives you back there, react to what the hitter does to your pitches.
Bouncer to shortstop. It backs up on there. Shelby Miller strands the 2-out double. He is through 5 scoreless here at Chase Field. Greater coverage of baseball presented by T-Mobile. A look around the rest of the National League West. Padres 1-0 losers at Miller Park in Milwaukee. Right now the Rockies lead the Mets 5-2, 8th inning at Coors Field. Bottom 3 in LA. The Dodgers lead the Cardinals 4-1. Here it's bottom 5. No score. The D-backs and the Giants. Shelby Miller has been outstanding so far. He'll lead off the 5th against Jeff Samardzija. And Samardzija has retired 8 of the last 9 he's faced. He struck out Miller looking his first time up. Will give it a look. I was just made aware of something, Bob. This is news to me. We had a shot of Fred Big Game Bauer, a Golden Glover down the right field line. Well, let's be honest, misplayed that last one. That is Mike Bauer's dad. Mike really? Of Mike and Vanessa fame here at the ballpark. That's Big Game Bauer down there. This is driven deep to center field off the bat of Miller. Span at the track, at the wall, and he won't get there. It rolls away. Shelby will head for third. He stumbled around the bag, but he's in there with a stand-up triple. He almost lost it there, rounding the second base bag, but he stayed upright, and he's at third to lead off the inning.
Wow, he put a charge on that one. Barrels up a high fastball to straightaway center field. Span goes all the way back to the wall, but comes up a little bit short. And unlike Brandon Drury, who a couple of innings ago ran over to back up a similar play on Chris Owings, Hunter Pence and Angel Pagan caught spectating out there, and Shelby Miller motors all the way around, ends up at third base with a triple. Almost threw a shoe right there.
Gene Segura. Samardzija now at 70 pitches, 50 strikes. He's been as efficient as Shelby has. But the Diamondbacks with their best chance yet. Runner at third, nobody out. Segura 0 for 2. That was a ball like the one that Greinke put a charge into last night. First ever triple for Shelby Miller. He's at third, the 1-0 to Segura. Base hit, 1-0 Diamondbacks. Gene, the hitting machine. He's at it again. Segura's now hit safely in 11 straight.
Shut him out and score a run. You can't lose. Gene Segura goes down and gets some kind of an off-speed pitch. Looked like a slider down below the zone. Gets the barrel underneath that ball somehow and hits that soft liner into center for the first run of the game.
Brandon Drury has singled and grounded out, 1 for 2. So Shelby Miller gets it started. They're going to cool him off in there. Patrick Corbett and Shelby Miller now have pitcher triples at the plate for the Diamondbacks this year. Deep breaths. Wasn't the most graceful turn around the bases ever, but it was certainly effective.
I joke all the time that pitchers really only do 3 things. They pitch, they run, and they bunt. But they don't run bases very often. You know, you'll see them do their running drills in the outfield before the game, but rarely do they have to turn the bag at first and head to second, and even more rarely do they ever have to turn the bag at second and head for third.
They also golf.
Oh, they do that too.
I tell you what, the Giants really did get lucky. He scored anyway, so it didn't matter. But when that ball hit the wall that Shelby hit, it just sort of died with a thud. Had that rolled away from Span back toward the infield, that would have been an easy inside the park home run, because as you mentioned, Pence was not even in the picture.
Yeah, the 2 corner outfielders were just caught spectating as DENARD Span went back to the barrier. Yeah, you're right. If that one had hit off the wall hard and ricocheted back toward the infield, Shelby would probably be laying at home plate in a coma right now.
Exactly right. So we're all better off, maybe. This is bounced to Duffy. They get one, Panic turns it. A run in, 2 down for Goldie.
Goldschmidt.
Segura coming in straight through the bag there.
Yep. Got to do it.
Well, Goldie 0 for 4 last night. Hit into a double play, struck out 3 times against Cueto. So far tonight against Samardzija, he has popped up and struck out. And he looks at strike 1.
You think back to last season, Diamondbacks pitchers as hitters had 1 combined extra base hit all season. That was Robbie Ray, hit a double.
Wow, really?
That was it. This year there's already 4. Patrick Corbin has a double and a triple. Zach Greinke has a double, and we just saw Shelby Miller hit a triple. Their slugging percentage as a staff is way up.
Goldie down 0-2. Well, you're right about Buster Posey. He's back there like the statue of the thinker, trying to figure out what finger to put down. Crawford at shortstop. Shelby Miller got it started with his first career triple. Segura singled him home, and through 5, it's 1-0 D-backs. Live high-speed highlights presented by Cox. So far, Shelby Miller in 5 innings has given up just 4 hits. Milwaukee's got 2 strikeouts and 10, count them, 10 ground ball outs.
Yeah, for the most part, his location has been fantastic, and when he has missed the zone like he did on Hunter Pence, threw one about 10 feet over his head, it's been in a location where the Giants hitters just couldn't do much with it.
And oh, by the way, our Gila River game summary, he's got his first ever triple, and he scored the game's only run. Segura the RBI. He's now hit an 11 straight, and Angel Pagan will lead off the Giants' 6th. Pagan walked his first time up. His first game since May 11th. He's been out 11 games with a left hamstring strain. Shelby starts the inning at 75 pitches, 54 for strikes.
Well, this pretty much tells the story of Shelby Miller's night here against the Giants. 0-2 and 1-2 counts 9 times. First pitch strikes 15 out of 18, 3 double plays, three ball counts, but he struck out 2 of those guys.
0-2. Yeah, he did the first time he failed to throw a first pitch strike was to Pagan when Pagan led off the 3rd. He has been ahead in the count all night long. Oh, 0-2. Good piece on Shelby Miller and the Diamondbacks in USA Today today. Bob Nightingale did that one. Bob was with us last week in Atlanta, writing about Shelby Miller's start to the season. Base hit for Pagan.
Hey fans, follow Arizona Diamondbacks baseball live with the MLB.com at-bat app. Stay up to the moment at any moment with game day, live game video highlights, StatCast, news, and more. Download MLB.com at-bat, the #1 app for live baseball on your phone and tablet.
Dave Stewart, the D-backs GM, was telling Bob Nightingale that when you look at Shelby Miller's start this year, nobody expected this, but then again, nobody expected it to last. And again, signs tonight that the difficult start is coming to an end. Stu said Shelby is just too good of a pitcher for that tough run to last. He is not expecting that level of performance to carry through until June or July. He's just too good for that. And the headline to that article was that Stu said if he had the chance to do the trade all over again, the Diamondbacks would do the same thing. They would make that move. That's how confident they are that Shelby Miller will get this thing turned around. 80 pitches, 58 strikes. Two 2-0. A base hit by Pagan to lead off the 6th. Now he's behind on Span 2-0. Don't want to get away from the formula that has worked so well to this point. Stay ahead in the count, get ground ball outs. Span is a perfect guy to get that. He is not hitting the ball this year with any real authority. He's not a power hitter per se, certainly anyway, but he is hitting this year far more ground balls than ever before. A lot more soft contact up there at the plate. Swing and a miss.
Good off-speed pitch behind in the count. 2-0 right there. 2-0 and 3-1 generally fastball counts. At least most hitters look fastball in those counts, and that time twisted him up with a breaking ball. 2-0.
Pagan still holding over the glove of Ahmed and into left center field. A pair of singles open up the 6th.
Use one of those double play balls right about now. DENARD Span picks on a fastball out over the plate and lines it just over the head. That pigeon-toed approach by DENARD Span, then drops into that exaggerated crouch, but barrels that one up for a base hit.
Really got to buckle down now. You've got Panic, Duffy, and Posey coming up. Pagan at second, Span at first. Nobody out. Panic 1 for 2. He singled his last time up. Now starting to fall behind in counts.
And third time through the order here, we've seen some more curveballs from Shelby Miller, starting to mix up his arsenal a little bit.
Tyler Clippard among those, starting to limber up in the Diamondback bullpen. Nobody throwing as of yet. behind 2-0.
Now somebody's going to get to work in earnest. See Chris Herman with his gear on.
Jake Barrett, Andrew Chafin, maybe. Garvin Olson will get him going down there.
And Mike Butcher with a trip to the mound to stall for a little more time, allow those relievers to get going down there, and also to help Shelby Miller kind of regroup here. Rough start to the inning, but we've seen him dodge bullets all night long with that double play ball.
Well, Dave Stewart was talking about this when things go bad for Shelby in these starts. You see the flashes of the guy they traded for. He looks good, and then Stu said something happens and it ends up to be a big inning, whether it's an error, it might be an umpire missing a call, some kind of a cheap hit, or a couple of hits like we've seen here open up this inning. You can see it building, Stu says, and then it snowballs, and all of a sudden he's out of the game.
Or you hit a triple in the bottom half of the inning before.
He's tired?
Well, I don't know that he's tired, but you know, when you're out there in a rhythm as a pitcher, and you know, you got your legs underneath you, your wind up, your stretch, everything's working well, you're pounding that strike zone, and then you have to leg out a triple, and your legs are a little jelly when you go back out to that mound for that next half inning. You're not quite as firm on your lower part as you were in the innings before.
He was running hard, no doubt about that. He spikes one, and the runners will move up.
That one barely made it onto Fox tracks, hitting the dirt over there.
Andrew Chafin and Jake Barrett working quickly in the Diamondback bullpen. Pagan singled, Span singled. He's wild pitched them up 90 feet. He's behind on Panic 3-0. Long fly ball, right field corner. Gone, a home run. Joe Panic. That's his 5th and 2nd in 2 games, and just like that, it's 3-1 Giants.
Flexing his muscles the last couple of games here. Starting to get more experience, knows what to do in certain counts, and man, did he put a charge on that one.
Joe Panic has always hit well in this ballpark. A .370 hitter at Chase Field in his career, with 7 extra base hits, and now make it 8. His 5th of the season. Here's Matt Duffy. Chafin on the left, Barrett on the right. 2 singles and a home run open up the Giants' 6th. Boy, that's a shame. He had pitched a beauty through 5. This is belted to center. Owens is there. 1 away.
Now your job as a starting pitcher now is to stop the bleeding, hold the scoring right there, and give your offense a chance to get back in this game against Jeff Samardzija in the bottom half of the inning. I mean, every starting pitcher is going to give up some home runs. You're going to give up some base hits. Unfortunately, they came in a bunch here in this 6th inning for the Giants, but you got to stop it right now.
Posey 0 for 2. Joe Panic. He's going to be a problem for a while.
Yeah, he's going to be a really good player. He already is a really good player. He's only going to get better.
1st round pick by the Giants out of St. John's in the draft 5 years ago. The 29th overall selection, the pride of Yonkers, New York. He's only 25.
There's a slight resemblance to Buster Posey. I think that's the Giants' plan, to draft guys that look like Buster.
Hey, it ain't broke. That's a blueprint you could follow. Well, you always say, and you're right, of course, Buster always looks like Goldie up there, the way they sort of stand and hold the bat. There's a lazy fly ball to right center for Drury.
Well, we had some shots in years past of Goldie and Buster Posey at that one moment in their setup where they look identical with the bat pointed straight down the back. A lot of flex in the knees, upper body straight up and down.
They can both hit, I know that.
Oh, yeah.
That's about it. They'll put the shift on for Belt, who has grounded out, struck out 0 for 2. Speaking of guys who look like other guys, there's a lot of Jake Lamb in that stance right there. Now the hands on Belt will creep back up right there, but he sort of starts where Jake starts from the left-hand side.
I'm really surprised Brandon Belt hasn't been hit more often. He's only been hit by pitch one time this year, and not because he's a jerk or he's a showboat or anything like that. He's none of that. He just stands so close to that inside corner and dives in there. His upper body's out in the strike zone by the time he swings the bat.
He looks a lot like Anthony Rizzo with the Cubs that way. They have really worked on Brandon Belt's swing. The hitting coach there is Hensley Mullins, Bam Bam. And they got Belt to lower his hands, sort of tighten things up, no more wasted movement. 22nd pitch of the inning from Shelby Miller coming up. 1-2 on Belt.
That's what I was talking about a moment ago. When he misses, he's been missing badly.
Yeah.
With the exception of a couple of pitches to start this inning. But he's either been in or around the strike zone or missing by a wide margin where the Giants aren't even thinking about swinging at him.
Yeah, it sounds like he's not getting some borderline calls. Is that seems pretty unusual? You ever encountered anything like that? When he misses by a mile.
Yeah, well, it happens sometimes, and usually it's an effective approach. I mean, most pitchers don't intentionally try to do that, but it's a good way to go about it if you think about it.
Effectively wild, as you hear sometimes.
Effectively wild, yeah. Miss so badly they can't hurt you.
Well, he's worked it full on Belt 3-2. He lost him. Second walk for Shelby Miller. And that'll bring up Hunter Pence. Chafin and Barrett are ready in the bullpen. And that's going to be it. Shelby Miller, 99 pitches, 67 strikes. He worked 5 innings of scoreless baseball, but opened up this 6th with singles by Pagan and Span, then a 3-run homer to Panic. He couldn't quite finish out the inning, and they'll go to the bullpen. We'll take a break at Chase Field. D-backs trail at 3-1. Well, Shelby Miller upset with himself. Joe Panik a 3-run homer on a 3-0 pitch. It was the first time that Panik had swung at a 3-0 pitch all season long. And now they've gone into the bullpen. Your Arizona Federal Credit Union pitching change. It's the rookie right-hander Jake Barrett. 13 appearances this year. The last 5 have been scoreless. A 2.63 ERA. Jake with 11 strikeouts, 11 hits allowed in just under 14 innings. And he worked last night a perfect 1-2-3 ninth, including 2 strikeouts.
He only had to throw 9 pitches to get those 3 outs in the 9th inning last night. He's very slowly working his way into more leveraged situations. He's done a really nice job out of the bullpen.
Hunter Pence has singled and struck out 1 for 2. To third, Jake Lamb. Well, Jake Barrett comes in and ends the 6th inning. But Joe Panik's 5th of the season has made it 3-1 Giants. Bottom 6 at Chase Field. D-backs trail the Giants 3-1. What's next brought to you by CenturyLink. Star Wars night here at the ballpark tomorrow night. Game 3 of the 4-game set. Patrick Corbin on the mound for the Diamondbacks. The veteran right-hander Jake Peavy for the Giants. That's a 5:10 first pitch. Diamondback Live pregame show at 4:30 on Fox Sports Arizona as Jake Lamb leads off the 6th against Jeff Samardzija, who now has a 3-1 lead. Jake doubled in the first. He's 1 for 2. Zach Curtis has started throwing in the Diamondback bullpen, the rookie left-hander. Samardzija 80 pitches, 57 strikes, misses there. Jake ahead 2-1.
You look ahead to the Giants' 7th inning. They got the left-handed hitting Brandon Crawford, then the pitcher spot, and then a switch hitter and 2 lefties in a row. So Zach Curtis starting to crank it up.
So the book on Shelby Miller tonight. He went 5 2/3. 3 runs all earned, 7 hits. He walked 2, struck out 2. 99 pitches, 67 strikes. Jake Lamb, panic is there. Boy, Jake this week has had about 5 hang with him. He's hit it right to somebody on that right-hand side of the infield. Steve Wellington 0 for 2. So Marja gets comfortable. He will go a long way. He has been a real workhorse for the Giants so far. He's pitched at least into the 8th inning 4 times in his 7 starts. He goes deep into games. He's been over 100 pitches 4 times already. And not by a little. He goes well over. He threw 123 pitches in his last start Sunday, which was the 2nd highest total of his career. He's routinely gone 110, 112, 115. 1 and 2 on Beef Wellington. This is a guy who has averaged better than 200 innings per season over the last 4 years and put up some very solid strikeout numbers along the way.
A lot of reasons to respect Jeff Samardzija and his ability out there on the mound, but I found a new reason in the Giants media guide.
What do you got?
He met his wife backstage at a Pink Floyd concert. How romantic.
You old softy. He seems like the kind of guy that would do that.
Yeah, he lives here in the Valley, makes his home in Paradise Valley in the off season.
He's a rocker.
He and his wife are expecting their first son. Well, actually had their first son this spring in February.
There's Zach Curtis. He's got Samardzija's hair. Well, Samardzija said the whole time this offseason in the back of his head he knew San Francisco was where he wanted to be and where he belongs. He's fit right in. A fly ball to center for Span.
Hey fans, we invite you to participate in Gila River game nights by signing up on one of the interactive kiosks located right here at Chase Field during any Diamondbacks regular season home game.
Left fielder, YASMANY TOMAS.
YASMANY TOMAS has twice grounded out 0 for 2 against Samardzija. Samardzija says he and the Giants have so many similar characteristics, and one is to win ball games. He thinks he's a winner, and obviously they have been winners. Fly ball for Pence near the line. Belt will take it and foul ground. And Samardzija has set down 5 in a row. We are through 6. D-backs trail the Giants 3-1.
Top of the 7th inning, Giants 3-1 over the D-backs right now. New pitcher came in. I asked him in the clubhouse a couple of days ago how he felt now that he's got a couple of games under his belt. He felt great. He feels more confident. The only problem he's having is learning how to speak to people in the majors. It's very different when you are playing in the minors, and him coming from Visalia up to the majors. He came up in t-shirt and jeans. In Atlanta, his wife actually had to get him a buttoned-up shirt so that he can look the part of an actual baseball player. When I asked him, how do you feel going up into the mound? He said, I've had a number of horror stories. I don't want to trip, so I keep looking down until I get to where I'm supposed to be. Guys?
Thanks, JR. Zach Curtis, the rookie lefty. Scoreless baseball in his first 4 major league appearances, Bob. And he may feel out of place, but he has fit right in.
He's looked great out there on the mound as far as speaking to other big leaguers. Usually rookies aren't allowed to speak. You just keep your mouth shut and your eyes and ears open and try to learn. But Zach Curtis has been learning on the fly and doing a great job.
He has worked 3 2/3 innings. He's given up only 1 hit. Walked 2, struck out 4 since he was called up from Visalia, where he was pitching for J.R. House. And Zach last worked Wednesday at Coors Field, retired all 3 he faced on only 13 pitches, including a couple of big lefties. He got Gerardo Parra and he got Cargo. And he's up against the lefty here. Brandon Crawford will open up the Giants' 7th.
San Francisco, shortstop, Brandon Crawford.
You can imagine how overwhelming that can be for a guy coming up from the Cal League A-ball.
Yeah. He was pitching in Kane County last year.
You know, one of your old favorite names, Scruffy McScrufferson one day and Carlos Gonzalez the next.
That's right. Crawford doubled his last time up. He's out of Hendersonville, Tennessee, Zach Curtis, a Middle Tennessee State Blue Raider. The D-backs 6th round pick in the draft only 2 years ago. Less than 2 years ago, in fact. We're not quite at that point in this year. He was a starting pitcher in college. In fact, led the nation in strikeouts the year he was drafted. This is popped way up first base side. Goldie. And that is really what helps make him extra special. Usually guys like this, these little feisty lefties come in, it's fastball, slider, and that's pretty much it. But he's got 4 legit pitches because he's been a starter.
Pitcher, Jeff Samardzija.
Samardzija will hit here in the 7th. And as a pro, he has worked as a closer, Hillsborough, Kane County, Visalia. So he's been in some big spots, trying to get some big outs. Dodgers still leading the Cardinals in LA. That game is 6-3 Dodgers in the 5th inning. Rockies beat the Mets at Coors Field 5-2. Padres lost 1-0 in Milwaukee. 1-2 on Jeff Samardzija. We are back for game 3 of the 4-game series tomorrow. Diamondback Live pregame show at 4:30. Patrick Corbin for the D-backs and Jake Peavy for the Giants. Ruby De La Rosa, Matt Cain on Sunday. Don't forget tomorrow, Star Wars night. Get your D-back Star Wars soft style t-shirt. Get here early tomorrow. Jake Lamb snares that one. 2 up, 2 down for Zach Curtis. And now he'll work to Angel Pagan. The D-backs welcome the Yankees back to Chase Field on Monday. First time they've been here since 2010. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. First pitch for all 3 games is 6:40. Get your seats right now at dbacks.com, fans, and check out the D-backs and the New York Yankees. John and Susan will be here. My goodness gracious. Always fun to see John Sterling, Susan Waldman. Pagana's walked, singled, scored a run. Of course, John Sterling with those legendary radio calls. Robbie Cano, don't you know?
Don't you know?
Oh, yes, indeedy, for Didi Gregorius. He's got one for everybody. Pagan, the switch hitter, will bat from the right-hand side against the lefty Curtis. The leadoff man, DENARD Span on deck. Pagan used to be the leadoff man and the center fielder. Now Span has both those jobs. They move Pagan into the 9-hole, which Bruce Bochy loves. He says it's really worked out well because, in a sense, once the order flips around, you've got two leadoff speed type guys back to back. And it's been a very good fit. And Pagan gets a lot of the credit for that. He has adapted pretty well. A lot of pride in being the center fielder and the leadoff man. Jam shot pop up for Segura at second, and the rookie lefty Zach Curtis does it again. A 1-2-3 inning. We stretch at Chase Field. D-backs down 2. Roof and panels open at Chase Field. D-backs trail the Giants 3-1. Time now for Cricket, something to smile about. And earlier in the ball game, homeboy lost his beverage on the foul ball. Dude. Brought to you by Cricket Wireless. Something to smile about, I guess, but not for him.
You shouldn't be trying to catch a pop foul in your beverage cup anyway.
Fair point.
That's why you bring your glove to the ballpark, and we highly encourage both adults and children to bring their gloves out here.
Chris Owings 2 for 2, a pair of singles. Remember when Jim Harbaugh was a guest of Tony La Russa? Harbaugh would be sitting up in the box with his khakis on and his glove ready to go, poised at the ready, the edge of his seat, waiting for a foul ball. Chris Owings 3 for 3, leadoff man aboard. Boy, CO, the bat has really come alive here. He's hit safely in 6 straight.
Shortstop.
Head right down the barrel of the bat. Got to see it to hit it. CO tracks that one almost completely to the point of contact. Hard ground ball over the mound on into center field.
Nick Ahmed now, pitcher spot behind him, and Phil Gosselin is in the on-deck circle. Nick has singled and grounded out. He's 1 for 2. Over play ball, short hop for Duffy. Panic, turns it, 2 down. Well, Samar just said he's a ground ball pitcher. Ground ball rate just over 50% this year. They just got him 2 big outs in the 7th. And now Gosselin will hit for Kurtz.
Partner, I was just going to say, it really is amazing the transformation of Jeff Samardzija. He was a guy that you could predict that he was going to throw that split finger fastball in every 2-strike count, looking for the strikeout or the ground ball. But as we've talked about throughout the afternoon or the evening, a sinker cutter combination. He's mixed in just a few split fingered fastballs and just a few sliders.
Gosselin 286 and a homer. He had a pinch hit double last night and is 7 for 18 as a pinch hitter this year. That's about a .390 average. Right to Duffy. We'll go to the 8th. It's still 3-1 San Francisco.
Top of the 8th inning, Giants lead the D-backs 3-1. You know, David Peralta, D-backs fans, is your chance to meet him tomorrow morning from 10 to 11 a.m. David's going to be at the Cox Solution Store in Tempe, located at 2040 East Rio Salado Parkway. Now, if you haven't noticed, David is not in the lineup. He continues to rest that wrist. Now, earlier today in the clubhouse, I got a chance to speak with David Peralta about his injury and how he's doing and feeling. He stated that the doctor checked him out. He told him there was no ruptures or fractures. There is some discomfort, but if he needs to come in to pinch hit, he said he is ready. He sounds confident and ready to return. In fact, he sounds very, very confident. Guys?
Thanks, JR. New pitcher for the Diamondbacks, right-hander Randall Delgado, 17 appearances and 20 innings of work this year. The ERA at 6.30. And he'll work to the top of the Giant order here in the 8th inning. DENARD, Span, Joe Panik, and Matt Duffy. Randall worked Sunday in Atlanta, again Monday in the opener at Coors Field, so he's had a few days off. Span singled and scored his last time up. He's 1 for 3. Randall. Castillo called for time. Randall wasn't looking and was about to release the baseball, and Wellington had already given up on the pitch. So Randall, watch time. So Castillo's got to get ready. Then he points to his eyes and says, hey, you know, look at me, I'm right here. And we'll start that again.
Yeah, Randall's one of those guys that as he begins his delivery, he looks away from home plate as Span bangs that one into right field for a leadoff base hit. And he didn't see Wellington requesting timeout.
That could have got ugly. Well, here's Panik, who's got the game's big hit, a 3-run homer off Shelby Miller his last time up. Right field corner.
And as you said, the first time he'd swung at a 3-0 pitch ever, made it count just inside the foul pole.
His 5th of the year. He's 2 for 3. Homered here last night. Giants scored 4 runs last night. Panik drove in 2. He's knocked in all 3 of their runs here tonight. Funny, suffered a slight groin injury at the end of April, Joe Panik, and missed 6 games. And since he'd been back, he was just 4 for 29, even with the home run last night. But he's now hit safely in 4 straight and clearly feels a lot better. He's now played 15 games in this ballpark, and in 15 games at Chase Field, he's got 8 extra base hits.
Span over there at first base tied for the team lead with Matt Duffy with 4 stolen bases. However, he's been caught 4 times. Duffy has not been caught yet this season.
He's a lot faster than his giant fat cat Skeeter, Matt Duffy. You see the pictures of Skeeter?
No.
Oh, Matt Duffy's got this cat. It's like the size of a Volkswagen. I mean, his name is Skeeter, and he's the world's fattest cat. Became something of a cult figure on the old social media last year. Pictures of Skeeter, what Skeeter eats, what Skeeter does.
See, so there is a good use for social media.
Still not sure that that's true. Remember, we had a Grumpy Cat here throw out the first pitch last year for 1 game. Grumpy Cat came back this year too.
Still grumpy.
Well, cats. Well, a leadoff single by Span. Now Delgado behind on Panik, 3-1. Wellington Castillo would like a word. No one throwing the Diamondback bullpen. Look around the Giants. We've talked a lot about Duffy and what a good year he had last year, filling in for Casey McGee when they gave up on him, and he wound up runner-up as National League Rookie of the Year. And you've got Crawford there is established now, and Panik part of the mix. They have their whole infield locked up. They just signed Brandon Belt to a long-term deal. It's an entirely homegrown infield in San Francisco, and one that figures to stay together for quite some time. In fact, this year, opening day was their first all homegrown infield since 1993. It's been such a big part of what they do, the stability. A single and a walk open up the Giant 8th against Delgado. Panik aboard for the 3rd time, and here's Duffy.
Third baseman Matt Duffy.
Duffy singled in the first. He is 1 for 3. Duffy has one big weakness up there. He is very susceptible to hitting into double plays. Last year he was grounded into double plays 22 times. That put him top 10 in the major leagues. He could use one right here. Diamondbacks will have the top of the order due up in the home half of the 8th. Segura, Drury, Goldie. Got to keep this a 3-1 game.
That's why those middle relievers are so important to a ball club. They don't get the same kind of recognition. Their stats don't always show up on the league leaders at the end of the season. But if you have some guys in the middle that can stop the other team and at least give your team a chance to come back in the game, very valuable part of any bullpen.
Pulls that one foul. Oh, rerun. That's Dick Rerun Roberson out there. The reason they call him rerun is because every play he makes looks like a rerun, because he always makes the play. You say, is that a rerun? No, it's a new play, but that time.
I really think this is a lineup problem. The manager should have switched these two guys. I mentioned earlier in the game, the guy down the right field line doesn't move well to his right, so he should be playing left field.
And of course, is Fred Big Game Bauer over there.
And rerun of being a left-hander, he should be down the right field line.
Yeah, that's not been a good night for the Gold Glovers. Big Game Bauer badly misplayed one earlier. Got to get that glove down there. Here's Big Game, chilling in right. Dick Rerun Roberson in left. 2 on Duffy. You know, the problem is that when we have repeat guys, I forget what nickname I gave them the previous time, so I may be doubling up here. I should have started keeping a record. I'm like, I'll get the name.
No, it's even better this way.
I mean, guy might have 5, 6 different nicknames over the course of the year at this rate. Have to get our moderately reliable staff to start keeping a record of the Golden Glover nicknames. We have been spot on all year with No Neck Noriega. He's been consistent.
Right now we're looking for Matt double play Duffy to hit one on the ground right at one of the defenders.
Get a couple of quick outs here. You got Posey on deck. Andrew Chafin was warming up earlier in the ball game. He started throwing again down to the Diamondback bullpen. You got Posey coming up, then the left-hander Belt behind him. 2-2 on Matt Duffy. That one is pulled down the left field line, but foul. Nice catch by the D-back fan, wearing a new D-back cap out there. That was a shot. That was not an easy play. Wellington Castillo trying to get Delgado through this.
You know, we saw it with Ruby De La Rosa earlier this year when the Diamondbacks put him in the bullpen for a couple of outings and told him to work faster. Get your pace going. Let's get some rhythm out there on the mound. We saw it work for a little bit for Robbie Ray in Colorado, and I think Randall Delgado is another guy that would benefit from picking up the pace just a little bit. He really takes a long time between pitches.
2-2. He's worked it full. So far, a single and a walk. Still nobody out. Chafin throwing the Sanderson Ford bullpen.
Now, granted, this is a big pitch in the ball game right here with a couple runners on base and nobody out. A full count to Matt Duffy with Buster Posey waiting on deck, and he's strolling around the back of the mound playing with the rosin bag. And he did it on the pitch before that and the pitch before that.
He looks like he's not anxious to throw the next pitch. Three and two to Duffy. Span at second, Panic at first. It's a flare to left center. Tomas has got it, and that's the first out in the eighth. Here is Buster Posey.
Catcher, Buster Posey.
Posey 0 for 3. Buster's a guy that used to consistently bang the ball back up the middle of the field, but part of his problem this year, and he's been slumping badly, he's gotten a little pull happy. If you look at the spray charts, he's pulling the ball a lot more this year than he usually does. Fewer line drives and fly balls than ever before. He's hitting it on the ground a lot to his pull field. Missed away, 1-0. Posey has not been delivering in clutch spots like this like he usually does. This year 5 for 34 with runners in scoring position. That's in there for a strike. 1-1. That's been part of the problem. One of the reasons everyone in San Francisco, like they've been saying here in Arizona with Goldie, what's wrong with Buster Posey? Chafin is ready in the Diamondback bullpen. You've got the lefty Belt on deck. Still just 1 out. Here's your ground ball. Ahmed, Segura, they roll it. First 2 reach against Delgado, but he gets a fly ball and a double play ball to keep it a 3-1 ball game.
Coming up on Diamondbacks Live, the postgame show, Brendan Webb will have to deal with the totality of Shelby Miller's night, from first pitch strike efficiency to what went wrong, right?
Yeah, the best we've seen Shelby Miller to date. Take a look at his early success and what happened there in the 6th inning when the Giants got to him. All
right, we've got a great pitch-by-pitch sequence we want to get to on the postgame show. But first, plenty of game left. Let's get it back to Steve and Bob. Guys, take it away.
Thank you, guys. Look forward to that as soon as our ball game ends here on Fox Sports Arizona. Gene Segura has knocked in the Diamondbacks' only run, an RBI single his last time up, 1 for 3. And he leads off the 8th inning, and for the 5th time in 8 starts this year, Jeff Samardzija has worked into the 8th.
That is the definition of a horse. Next pitch will be number 100 on the night for Jeff Samardzija. That's just a number. He can throw as many pitches and many innings as Bruce Bochy needs from him.
And remember, he threw 123 in his last start. That was Sunday. And right now he's at 100 pitches, 69 strikes. .30 is in there. Sorta. Bullpen will get busy for the Giants. Josh Osich is the left-hander. Hunter Strickland the right-hander. Three and 2. Segura has now reached base safely in 20 straight games, a career high. Brandon Drury on deck, Goldie in the hole. Bouncer over the mound for Crawford. Bell tied. Throws him out, 1 away.
Right fielder,
Brandon singled in the first. He's 1 for 3. Each team with 8 hits in the ball game. The big blow, the Joe Panik 3-run homer in the 6th. After Pagan and Span had singled to start off that inning, Panik hit his 2nd home run in as many games as 5th of the year. That's accounted for all 3 Giant runs. Popped up, foul ground, first base side for Belt. 2 down.
Hey fans, bring the kids to the game this Sunday. The D-backs take on the Giants, and the first 10,000 kids will get a T-ball set courtesy of MLB Play Ball. And after all Sunday home games, kids can run the bases for Phoenix Children's Hospital. For tickets, visit dbacks.com.
Well, Goldie coming off an 0 for 4 night last night when he hit into a double play and struck out 3 times. His 0 for 3 tonight. He popped up on the first pitch in the first inning, and then he struck out and grounded out. Funny, we talked about Samardzija adopting the Johnny Cueto turn, and it's a full turn. That front knee faces his center fielder at one point when he spins all the way around. He's kind of finishing like Cueto does too, with the little flare right there, that leg kick.
And it's gotten more exaggerated as he's gotten deeper into the ballgame. For me, I think that's a sign that maybe mechanically and physically he's getting near the end when you start to see things that you don't normally do out there on the mound.
I mean, he looks like a Rockette at Radio City Music Hall. Cueto looks the same way when he finishes. They have the same hair too. Mostly. 2-1. Giants in the 9th inning. We'll have 5, 6, and 7. Belt, Pence, and Crawford. Chafin has started throwing again in the Diamondback bullpen. 2-2 to Goldie. Full count, 3-2. Jake Lamb would be next. He doubled back in the first. 110 pitches for Samardzija, 75 strikes. It was a slow start for Goldie last month. He hit 247 in April. It's been an even slower May. He came into the ball game tonight hitting an even 200 this month with 1 home run and 3 RBIs in 11 games. Hitless so far tonight. High in the air. Center field for Span. We'll go to the 9th at Chase Field. Diamondbacks trail the Giants 3-1. young Shelby Miller had the double play ball working for him after he worked 5 scoreless. It's our Chaz Roberts air conditioning cool plays of the game. They turned 3 behind him tonight.
You certainly take that as an encouraging sign, making those quality pitches down at the bottom of the zone to some pretty good hitters. Defense was busy up the middle of the night.
Randall Delgado got a 6-4 3 to end the 8th. And now here we are in the 9th. The new pitcher for the Diamondbacks is the left-hander Andrew Chafin. The Sheriff, 17 appearances, the ERA right at 6. Always time for some Cold Stone here at the ballpark, no matter what the score is. Brandon Belt, who has grounded out, struck out, and walked, will lead off the Giant 9th.
That's a new look with the stripes on the socks for Andrew Chafin.
It is cool. He's had a whole bunch of new looks. He shaved the mustache, we were told, because his girlfriend didn't like it. Now he's got the Broadway Joe Namath white shoes, the striped socks. The cowboy hat is a constant, however. Remember, I think it was Jason Bourgeois that always wear the striped socks in spring training this year.
Yeah, you're right.
The numbers on Andrew. He last worked last night, in fact. Worked the 8th inning. Got Belt, Pence, and Crawford. 1, 2, 3. They'll face the same 3 guys here in the 9th. He got Belt to fly out. He struck out Pence. Got Crawford to fly out. Now last night got 3 outs on 9 pitches. But behind on Brandon Belt, 3-1.
The Diamondbacks have been shifting to the pull side for Brandon Belt all night long, but against the left-handed pitcher, not as much. Nicks up the middle a little bit, and certainly Jake Lamb well off the line at third base, but as close to a standard defensive alignment as you'll see against Brandon Belt.
3-2 pitch. All 4. A leadoff walk. That's something that Belt has done a lot. He is on pace to set a career high in walks by the middle of this year. His walk rate is more than doubled this season. Here's Hunter Pence. Singled in the 2nd. He's 1 for 3.
That's something the Giants as a team have done a lot of this year. They're 2nd in the National League in drawing base on balls.
Pence is another guy. He's walking twice as much this year as he did last year. He's become, you always think of him with the sort of goofy swings as a free swinger. But Pence this year has cut way down on the number of pitches he swings at that are outside the strike zone. He'll still occasionally chase one upstairs. We saw him do that a couple of times tonight, in fact. But he's a lot more selective these days. Play ball here. Goldie, Ahmed, they turn it. Nobody does that better than Paul Goldschmidt. 3-6-3, 2 down.
He makes it look so easy, but that's not an easy play for a right-handed throwing first baseman. You have to turn your body, get that accurate throw to second base for the force, and then get back to the bag to take the relay. Fortunately, it looked like Pence stumbled out of the batter's box just a little bit.
5 double plays turned tonight by the Diamondback infield. Now it's Crawford up there. 2 outs, nobody on. Crawford doubled in the 5th. He is 1 for 3. Diamondbacks in the bottom of the 9th inning. We'll have Jake Lamb, Wellington, Castillo, and Yasmany Tomas do up 4, 5, and 6. Samardzija really rolling. He's retired 10 of the last 11 he's faced. but the bullpen is still busy for the Giants. 0-2 on Crawford. Kelby Tomlinson is out of the on-deck circle. Samardzij's spot is next. Bullpen quiet for the Diamondbacks. Casilla and Osich, the right-hander and the left-hander. Every time Casilla turns around, there's a lefty warming up. They'll complete the strikeout. So we go to the bottom of the ninth at Chase Field. Diamondbacks trail the Giants 3-1. All the scoring in the ball game so far. Shelby Miller in a scoreless trip. A triple off the center field wall. Gene Segura, who's now hit safely in 11 straight, drives them in. It was 1-0 D-backs, but the Giants answer immediately. After singles by Pagan and Span to lead off the sixth, Joe Panik. His second home run in as many games, a 3-run homer, his fifth of the year, and that has been the scoring.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just a coincidence that the Giants were able to break through against Shelby Miller after he tripled in the half inning before. He just didn't look quite the same out there mechanically.
New pitcher for the Giants, the left-hander Josh Osich, who came on to start the 8th inning last night and faced Jake Lamb. He walked him. Well, that was the only batter he worked to, and now Lamb leads off the 9th. Lamb, Castillo, Tomas, 4, 5, and 6. Casilla, the closer, who got yanked for the lefty last night when they needed to get Lamb to win the ball game. They went to Lopez. Casilla's warming up in the Giant bullpen.
Now, knowing Bruce Bochy the way we do, this is going to be Josh Osich's only hitter. He's going to face the lefty and then turn the ball over to the right-handed closer.
One and two. You've got Peralta on the bench with that bad wrist. They say that he can still participate, but I'm sure you'd like to stay away from him hitting. He can field, he can run.
You'd like to stay away from him completely if you possibly could, just to keep open the option of backdating a DL stint should it get to that point.
Herman is a left-hand bat on the bench. If they go to the right, you can see it. He hits away from the shift. Tough play for Duffy, but he throws him out. Nicely done. And here comes Bruce Bochy.
Well, that's a great play by Duffy, running away from his target, throwing back across his body.
He's got 4 right-hand hitters scheduled up next, so he's going to go get the lefty and bring in his closer Casilla with 1 out in the 9th. Back after this. Back at Chase Field, the closer, Santiago Casilla, is on with 1 out in the 9th. Diamondbacks trail the Giants 3-1. Casilla let things get a little too interesting last night trying to close out the game. A double by Goslin, a single by Segura. He walked Goldie, and then with the bases loaded and the lefty Lamb coming up, Bruce Bochy went out and pulled his closer, brought in the veteran lefty specialist Javier Lopez, who got Lamb to ground out and end the ball game. And when the manager comes out and gets the closer in the middle of the 9th inning, not something you see very often at all, but the matchup of the whole thing made a lot of sense. Lamb had homered a couple of times off Casilla, and it worked. He got Lamb to ground out, but Casilla was less than thrilled when he was pulled.
And reports out there that Casilla came in early today and went into Bruce Bochy's office to apologize for his actions out there on the mound. This is a team game, and the manager's going to use the matchups that he thinks are best to get his team to the finish line with a victory. And unfortunately for Santiago Casilla, that did not involve him last night.
Lopez ended up with a save, his first of the year. Castillo ended up with a night to think about it. Now he's back in there trying to get the save, but behind on Castillo, 2-1. There it is, long fly ball down the left field line. Will it stay fair? Nope. Foul. This is the way it went down last night. He walks Goldie. That loads him up. And here comes the skipper to get the closer.
There's a protocol in this game. Pitchers are supposed to wait till the manager gets to the mound, hand him the ball. Some teams even require that pitcher to stay on the mound until the reliever gets out of the bullpen and onto the mound. But Boach said, come back here. Okay, now leave.
That's in the radio booth.
Ooh.
Oh, Candiotti ducking under the table.
That's where he does some of his best defensive work.
Exactly. Cowering in the radio booth. I think the moral compass, Mike Farron, actually left the booth when he saw that ball coming in. 2-2 on Wellington Castillo.
similar situation I was kind of indirectly involved with when I was catching for the Giants very early on in my career. And Frank Robinson came out to the mound at Shea Stadium to take one of our veteran relievers out of the game. And we had just pitched around Dave Kingman as a pinch hitter in the pitcher spot with a base open, walked him because Jim Barr wanted to go after Mookie Wilson at the top of the order. But when Frank saw ball 4 to Dave Kingman, he immediately was out of the dugout on his way to the mound to make a pitching change. And Jim Barr just flipped the ball in the air when Frank was halfway across the third baseline and started walking off the field. And Frank grabbed him by the jersey and drug him all the way back out to the mound and made him wait there until the relief pitcher came into the game. Needless to say, being a young player in the big leagues, I'm watching all this happen. I'm going, geez, I've never seen this before in my life. Should I do something? Maybe I better just stand back here close to home plate. But they got it all ironed out after the game, and it happens. Guys are very competitive. And, you think you have a game plan out there on the mound. You think you're executing your game plan, and occasionally the manager doesn't agree with your game plan.
Posey wants it up. Called strike 3.
Well, that's a knee buckler right there. I mentioned last night Casillas, unlike a lot of closers, in that he throws 2 different breaking balls, a hard curve and a hard slider. This is a curve ball with a little more downward movement and just does catch the inside corner of the plate, and Wellington knew it.
Yasmany Tomas, last man standing. 0 for 3. Jeff Samardzija in line for the win. He went 8 full innings, retired 10 of the last 11 he faced. It would improve to 5-2 on the year. Shelby Miller tonight, 3 runs, 7 hits, 5 2/3. Another big step forward for Shelby. The only mistake he made, the panic homer in the 6th. And Tomas strikes out. The Giants win the ball game, and they have taken the first 2 games of this 4-game series here at Chase Field after the Diamondbacks swept 4 at AT&T Park in San Francisco last month. So the D-backs have now lost 3 in a row, and they are just 5-14 here at Chase Field this year.
Well, it's a tough one to swallow after the strong start by Shelby Miller tonight. Even the triple and scored a run. Looked like he was cruising, but after the triple, the following inning, the Giants broke through against him.
Well, there is still good news here. A big step forward for Shelby Miller. Brandon Webb set to break that down on the Diamondback Live post-game show. Webby standing by with Todd Walsh. Todd.
Steve, thank you very much. Coming up, Diamondbacks Live will get underway. The standard fare, we'll hear from Bob Brenly and obviously Chip Hale and Diamondback player reaction. But Brandon, I feel like Bill Murray and Groundhog Day. Just like last night, this game, it was setting up, it looked like, for a Diamondback victory, and it turned in the blink of an eye, didn't it?
Yeah, it could have been mirror images of each other. Looking good at first. Pitchers doing great for the D-backs early on. It just lost it there towards the end and then ended up losing the game.
All right, there was some progress, but we'll take a closer look at Shelby Miller's outing here tonight. When we come back on this Friday night here from Chase Field, the Diamondbacks fall. They lose games 1 and 2 of this series. Now 3-1 your final. When we come back, we will begin Diamondbacks Live presented by CenturyLink. Lots to talk about, especially Shelby Miller. We'll have a pitch sequence on that home run by Panic to take a closer look at and more. Stick around. Back to Chase Field in just a moment.